Good evening. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 8 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, September the 13th in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business to come properly before the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Friday, September the 9th, 2011, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, and the editor at thealternativepress.com and patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Matesic?
Here.
Ms. Carey?
Here.
Mrs. Clancy?
Here.
Mr. Finn?
Here.
Mr. Friedman? Ms. Kirstead?
Here.
Mrs. Lights?
Here.
Mr. Slater?
Here.
Mr. Matesic, could you lead us in the flag salute, please?
All right, please join us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, do we have any announcements around the table? Mrs. Clancy.
Okay, just finished reading it, hot off the presses. Tamaqua Elementary School in Westfield has been awarded the New Jersey Agricultural Society's Learning Through Gardening Grant, led by Tamaqua Principal Michael Cullen and parents Charlotte Lee, Anita Beinecker, and Jerry Rothflesh. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. The proposal demonstrates the school's continued emphasis on good nutrition and the district's wellness initiative. Previously, the school cultivated a garden that was a learning environment for second graders. The grant will enable Tamaqua to expand the garden to include participation by students at all levels, 1st through 5th grade. The goal of the garden expansion is to encourage children to include more fruits and vegetables in their diets, to learn about the sciences associated with growing food and other plants, and to encourage students to live an active life by participating in the planting and maintenance of a garden. The grant will provide supplies for gardening, including raised beds and seeds, professional development for teachers, and consultations with master gardeners. In announcing the awarding of the grant to Tamaqua School, Suzanne McCulley of the New Jersey Agricultural Society stated, "Your forward-thinking plans and enthusiasm for integrating agriculture into your school's curriculum are admirable." And as a parent, a longtime parent at Tamaqua, I know the second grade garden has always been a huge hit and prominently displayed as you drive through the driveway, and one of the most highly anticipated days is picking that lettuce to have a salad in second grade, so I'm sure this is exciting for all the students now to expand upon that. So congratulations to Tamaqua.
That's great. Thank you very much. Anyone else? So our next board meeting will be on September the 27th at 8 p.m. here at 302 Elm Street. Now, on the agenda to recognize the public for agenda items only. And seeing no one approach the podium, Dr. Dolan.
Thank you. We actually have 3 presentations tonight. The first one, during the summer, Mrs. O'Neill and I were visited by Deputy Chief David Kelly from the Fire Department in Westfield, and also from Susan Driscoll from Union County Safe Kids. And they came with what I thought was a wonderful proposal for having the Fire Department and the schools work together with the families in town, specifically the families who have children in 6th and 7th grade. To focus on a very important topic, and that is fire prevention and knowledge about fires. So I'd like to start by actually introducing Deputy Chief David Kelly from the Westfield Fire Department.
Dr. Dolan, Ms. Walker, members of the board, I'd like to thank you for allowing myself and Ms. Driscoll the opportunity to come here tonight. As Dr. Dolan said, we met at the close of last school year to discuss this new joint venture between the Westfield School System, the Westfield Fire Department, and Union County Safe Kids to further the fire safety education of our students here in town. At that time, we decided that it would be best if we made a brief presentation to the board. So fortunately for me, Sue volunteered to put together a PowerPoint presentation. So without further ado, Sue's going to come up and man the computer. If you have any questions, we'll entertain a few. Dr. Dolan has informed me that you have a packed agenda tonight, so we'll keep it brief. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. Dave, why don't you, do you want to stay there? Okay, I'm used to being up front with the computer, so
I think you should sit here because
I'll sit here. Thank you very
Why don't
much.
we do that? I'll be back.
Okay. So as Dave said, I'm the coordinator of Safe Kids Union County. Safe Kids is a national and worldwide organization just to prevent injury in children. It was started by just one person, a physician in an emergency room in Washington, D.C., who saw all these kids coming in with accidents and injuries that could be prevented. So 20 years later, here we go. Dave and I are here this evening to kind of introduce you to a wonderful fire safety program and give you just a brief preview of it. We do have some videos, DVDs for you. If you like it, the board members can take them home, and you can also access the program online. So, let's go. Okay, we wanted to talk a little bit about why this program is so important, why we need it, and then we'll review what the program is about, and I promise you we'll be finished in 15 minutes. Okay? Fire and burns, the third leading cause of unintentional death among children ages 1 to 14 years old, and that's incredible. Every year, an average of about 500 children die, and about 116,000 are injured from fire burn-related incidences in their homes. On the average in the United States in 2009, someone died in a fire every 175 minutes, and someone was injured every half hour. In 2009, the fire departments responded to 377,000 home fires in the United States. It claimed the lives of over 2,500 people, and it injured another 13,000, not including firefighters. And when we talk about the cost of this, it's billions of dollars. My background is nursing, and I work at Children's Specialized Hospital, and I've taken care of kids in rehab post-burn injury. It is a national problem, and it's been a problem since Harry Truman, all the way up to the Obama administration. There were many reports put out, national fire reports, and in 1945, Harry Truman thought it was an important enough subject to convene a group who came up with a report, and they came out with the 3 E's of safety, and one of those E's was education. In 1973, another report came out, and again, one of the recommendations was public education efforts. In 2002, another convention said that the fire problem in America remained as severe as it was 30 years ago. And they quoted the apathy and indifference of the American public. In 2008, the Vision 2020 National Forum brought together a lot of experts in the fire field. Okay, now, they came up with 5 different strategies in that report. And strategy number 2 said that we needed to conduct a national fire safety education and social marketing campaign. Their recommendation was action item number 4, increase educational outreach through school and youth-based programs. We have for many years lagged behind other nations in serious fire strategy, and again, largely due to public apathy and indifference. Our mortality in the United States, our mortality rate, we rank 8th among 25 developed nations that report statistics for mortality in fire. A national survey funded by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recently concluded that most fire safety and prevention programs targeted children in the pre-K and elementary school. Although fun, the programs do not address the reality of fire. And then we have the media, to which we're all addicted. We've all watched the movies and the TV programs. I know I saw Backdraft, and I thought it was a great movie. But as you learn, when you look at the reality of fire, it's really not real. Okay? What's the current law? There is a law on the books, and it says that regular courses of instruction in fire prevention shall be given in every public and private school in this state, which instruction shall be adapted to the understanding of the several grades and classes in said schools. I will tell you that there is currently being introduced into the state legislature a bill to mandate fire safety education in grades 5 to 8 probably, or 5 to 7. And it's being written now. I don't know if it will pass, but there is a bill there. Okay, so FIRE is a program that was conceived by, does anyone recognize him?
Frank Field.
Frank Fields, Dr. Frank Fields, and he's a renowned geologist, and he was the weatherman on many of the popular programs on television. And he conceived of this program, and he has a passion after reading all of the fire statistics and seeing all of the instances of death and injury. And he's developed this along with his children, Storm Fields. You may remember him from television, and his daughter, Allison. Okay. And just to let you know that this Fire Is program was supported with a grant from the State of New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. And the grant was given to the New Jersey firefighters, to the Atlantic Regional Firefighters, the Division of Fire Safety. These are the coalition members, the New Jersey Fire Prevention and Protection Association, the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, and Safe Kids New Jersey. It's a 5-part video series on fire prevention and safety. And in looking at this information, you learn about the true nature of fire, and that fire isn't like it's shown in the movies or on TV. I learned so much from these videos that I was just astonished at what I didn't know previously. It's appropriate for students in grade 5 and up. And the critical key to this program is to reach the middle school age children as they begin to be able to understand fire, and also to reach their parents, guardians, and caregivers. Okay, so the purpose is to provide realistic fire safety education to older children and their parents and caregivers, and to enhance existing programs, and you'll all be interested in this, with no additional cost to the school system or users, and no additional teacher workload. And we want to target an older audience that's mostly devoid of fire safety training. I know I got very little training going through a school system, and my kids, all 3 of them, graduated from the Westfield schools, and all I remember is once a year I'd get these papers home that said establish an escape plan, and it would be with 200 other papers, and I'd be like, yeah. And I have to admit, somehow I never really went over that with my kids. And we want to educate the 2 generations of families at the same time, and to spare countless families from the horror of fire through simple education. Okay? Our objectives are that the family and student will recognize the life-threatening situations that occur during a fire and know how to respond, the actions to take in a fire, and we can evaluate that through a pre- and post-test. And the third one is to plan a set of actions for family members in response to a potential fire. So I think this video series has a good chance of provoking families to do that. So Fire Is introduces the reality of what fire is like, why fire safety is so important. It discusses and shows in a very non-threatening way the speed of fire, the heat created during a structure fire, and the toxic smoke from the fire. And it's not the Hollywood version. Now this is what you will see if you go online. It's the video series that would be put online. And this just tells you about the first in the series, and it is a Fire Is Hot. The first one is Fire Is Black. The second video series is Fire Is Hot, Fire Is Fast. Okay, Fire Is trying to read that. Smoke and gas. And Fire Is an Emergency. So those are the 5 parts of the series, and there's a few slides here that will tell you that before they take this online course, they have a pre-test that they fill out, and it can be tabulated online. So Fire is Black is the first one, and there you see Allison talking about it. So that it's not, when I watched this, I watched it and it wasn't scary as much as it was really educational. Okay, so that's the second part, so the kids can go through that. Okay. So the implementation of this program would be that it's put on local access TV station via DVD, and it's scheduled viewing times to correspond with school assignments. So we had talked about starting it out on Fire Prevention Week in October, and sending a letter home to all the families of the 6th and 7th graders, and having them sit down with their parents at home to watch this. Okay, they can access it from the TV station. It can also be put on your school website. I'd like to tell you that the DVD is also available in Spanish, and also the latest, I just got an email that they're working on it to be available for the hearing impaired. So, and then there should be maybe some media releases to the local papers to get parents going with it, that this is coming as kind of an educational program. And these are just some resources. You all have a handout, and the first one is accessing the fire safety site, and the second one is David Kelly at the fire department. My email is in there too. And then Andy Stratz, he is a fireman in Cranford who is spearheading this program. He's passionate about it, and he's instrumental in getting it, a bill into the legislature. He started it. The Cranford schools have been doing this for a couple of years. There's a lot of other schools. I put some of the letters in the packets. Hazlitt, I think. The new ones are Hamilton is doing it, and it's in the Newark schools now. So our goal is to get this throughout the nation, but we're starting with our own community. So, David, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sue. That was a great presentation. Do any of the members of the board have any questions at this time? Okay, very good. If you do, just forward them to Dr. Dolan, and she'll get to me. And thank you very much for allowing us to come and give this presentation tonight. We really appreciate it.
I just wanted to mention one thing. If you go in as an educator to the Fire Is site, and you hit on...
Sue?
Yeah.
I would prefer if you didn't give that information out, because
Oh,
this is
okay.
on local access
All right,
TV.
I'll send you an email about how you can get into the educator's site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and what a wonderful program to bring forward. Thank you.
So it is wonderful that we have people like David and Sue who come forward and work with the schools. We have another good group of people from the community who are coming forward to work with the schools. This group has been working together since last year. It is I think everybody in the community knows how active our PTOs are. Maybe everyone does not know that there's a coordinating council called the Parent Teacher Council, the PTC, that coordinates the efforts of our PTOs in all 10 schools. So under the aegis of the PTC, we now have a group of parents who've gotten together called the PTC Technology Committee, and the person who has stepped forward to chair this is with us here tonight to talk about the work they've accomplished so far and their vision for the future. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Friedberg.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan and Ms. Walker and the rest of the board for allowing me to present my committee's report on technology. My name is Mark Friedberg. I'm going to talk to you about the PTC Technology Committee and the work we've been doing, really starting in February of this year. Next slide. I'm going to talk about our goals and objectives of the committee, who we are, findings. We spent a lot of time looking throughout the school district and talking to a lot of parents and principals and teachers. We have 2 proposals that we're going to bring forth today and discuss, and then some plans for action moving forward. If you have any questions during my presentation, please interrupt. Dialogue is good. So our committee's goals and objectives. As I said, we were formed in February. Rose Hughes, at the time, who was the president of the PTC President's Committee, asked us to get together as committed and concerned parents representing 10 different schools throughout the district. Kathy Caddick, who is also now become the president of the PTC, coming in after Rose, is supporting us also in this effort and is working very closely with us. So what we were tasked with is on this slide. Develop recommendations for technology programs that will have a positive impact on the Westfield Public Schools at all grade levels. So we represent schools and children from throughout the district. What we were tasked with also was to solicit feedback from teachers, parents, principals, administrators, local PTOs on the nature of our technology environment, the nature of our technology infrastructure, really do some research. The third thing we kind of went through was to report our recommendations back to the PTC. This is the process we went through. After looking at recommendations, we're looking at costs and benefits of different recommendations. This is a work in progress. Also, another goal and objective is to work with the Board of Ed, working with Mitch Slater and others on the Ad Hoc Technology Committee to support the goals and objectives of the Westfield Public Schools regarding academic excellence. We really want to focus on technology and academic excellence, not just technology for technology's sake. And finally, and maybe is very high importance and priority, is to develop fundraising and financial plans to support these initiatives. It costs money. So let me just share with you who's on the committee. I'm going to get into some findings and recommendations. I would like to recognize these people who are on this slide for all the time and effort we spent talking to principals, talking to IT leads and teachers, talking to local PTOs and parents. Jennifer Siegel from Franklin School, Albert Pagliuguna from Jefferson, Sumit Kashani from McKinley, Barbara McGuire from Tamaqua School, Jay McCrae from Washington. I forgot to let you know that I'm a Wilson parent, so I have 2 children in Wilson School. Greg Wolf from Edison, Charlie Bergman from Roosevelt, and Dominic DiGiorgio from Westfield High School. So we really represented all the schools. This was our roster from last year. Going forward, we're going to add new and expand to more to represent the schools. Okay, and we have a roster for 2011, 2012, because kids graduate and parents move up and down the school system. And then from the district side, we work very closely with Brian and Lori on these plans and ideas and vision. Okay? So that's who we are. After we did a lot of the research and talked to all the principals and parents and PTOs, we organized even more tightly around 3 task forces, because there's energy and action required now that we went out and kind of found some stuff out. So we've organized around an IT planning task force with Brian and I are working on that. The details of IT planning, I'll explain more of that later, but that's after we have a recommendation is more details on costs, more details on resources, more details on timing. Not very high level, but more lower level. And this task force can also engage the community on projects and efforts, which can be very exciting and very compelling, to work with local schools and have some fun projects. IT is going to be projects. Then the other committee or task force is communications, because there's an awareness behind our effort, and some energy and sort of marketing. And Jessica Blessing and Dominic DiGiorgio, who are here tonight, are heading up that task force. Okay. And the third area that we need focus and attention on is really finance and fundraising, or fundraising and finance. And that's Amisha Moody and Kathy Datwani, two more parents who are in charge of that area. So we recognize by organizing in this fashion, this is a long-term effort. We're going to stay together and focus on these three areas and technology goals and objectives for the school. So what did we find out? We saw through the New Jersey Department of Education scorecards that the computer ratios throughout the district are higher than the state average of 3.3. So there's different ways you can look at these numbers. The entire school district, K through 12, has a ratio from last year of about 5.4 students per computer. Without replacing or adding new computers, that ratio is going up to 9.2 students per computer. So the ratio is rising sharply. It varies by school. The spending for new computers, equipment has been low or cut in the last 3 years, and that's why we're in this, why we see these numbers. The other thing we saw was the aging of the computers in the school district. In terms of number of computers and the age, is 70% are 4 years or older. So the recommendations, and we looked at a lot of different things. We felt these were the highest priority among all the proposals with the greatest impact would be to recommend these two programs. A computer purchase and a refresh program, which is a long-term 5-year proposal, which would be to provide additional and replacement computers to all stakeholders in the Westfield School District such that we can improve the student to computer ratio to 3 or lower. Okay. The other project or proposal that we thought was the highest priority and the greatest impact would be a wireless/mobile computing program, which has a shorter time frame. The specifics of that are to design and implement a secure wireless network everywhere throughout the Westfield Public Schools in order to support mobile computing. The secure wireless network will support mobile access to the public internet, the school internet, and the school private network via laptop computer, tablet computer, iPad, or any Wi-Fi enabled device. So this was after 4 months of research, conversations, discussions, and these made sense. Any questions on those two? So behind them, yes? Oh,
That's okay.
yes.
I just, for the student-to-computer ratio to be lower than 3.0, was it talked about one-to-one computing once we get the wireless network in place?
We did talk about it. There's very strong evidence in other school districts and we've seen other schools in the state of New Jersey have done that through laptops, laptop initiatives. We talked about it. We didn't really come to a decision on what the ratio should be.
Okay.
So, I would leave that up to maybe the board or someone else in the stakeholder community to decide what's the appropriate ratio. But the state average is 3, so we sort of stopped with that number. But we could envision places where the ratio would be higher. The ratio also could vary by level in the school district, which is a level of detail we didn't get into because it takes more time and effort to figure out the exact requirements of a kindergarten class versus 3rd grade versus middle school versus high school. The one-to-one ratio, I definitely think we see that at the higher levels, like at the high school levels. Like Pascack Valley High School in Bergen County 10 years ago started an initiative for laptops for every high school student, but not the middle schools and not the elementary schools. Okay. So looking for some feedback on that. So the computer refresh program, again, it's two things. It's really to replace aging. I think the benchmark is 4 years or older by the state, and to continue to buy new to keep the ratio at the appropriate level. The cost, these are estimates. These are, like I said, just estimates, $500 to $1,000 per seat, depending on what you're doing and what level of the school. To get us to a 3.0 ratio would require 1,500 additional computers. Okay. Today. That's a moving number, because if we go forward 1 year, then you're behind a little more. Yes?
Did the ratio jump so much in the K through 12 calculation from 09, 10 to 10, 11? It almost doubled. Is that because the computers got a year older and you took them out of service?
Yes. Well, they're not out of service, but just based on a cutoff of 4 years or younger is in the ratio. 4 years or older is not counted, and that's the metric that the state scorecard uses.
Got it. Thank you.
Then ongoing, recurring, would require, with 6,300 students in the school district, 500 replacement computers annually to maintain that ratio. So it's important to keep in mind, there's two numbers. Okay. And again, the cost, what we really want to look at, in my opinion, and I think other members of the committee, is the right technology for the right environment. So you'll see it referenced laptops, notebooks, PCs, multi-seat. Brian knows, as well as anybody, what the different requirements are and what people are asking to use in different schools. So that's why the costs will vary and the requirements will vary. Okay. The benefits, I think, are obvious. I talk about this a lot. I actually have 2 nephews who went to Pascack Valley, so I heard about that computer program 8 years ago, and I was very surprised by it, and I think it's been very successful. At the high school level, I think it really prepares them for college. At the middle school, preparing for high school, it seems like it's a strong necessity to have more computers. And again, the time frame that we are looking at is 5 years. Okay. The other proposal, which I think is equally as exciting, yet very different, is the wireless and mobile computing. So design and implement a secure wireless network everywhere throughout the Westfield. Well, we have a wireless network now. This is really an upgrade and an extension of the wireless network that we have, okay, to make it ubiquitous. That would allow, as more computer and Wi-Fi enabled devices enter our school system, access to the public internet, school intranet, and the school private network will become a bottleneck. Without a wireless infrastructure, mobile computing is not a reality. So if we buy a lot of laptops, if that's the decision, hand in hand, we'll need a wireless network. And Pascack Valley did that also. It's not really spoken about too often because it's invisible, literally invisible, and it's also in the ceilings. And they did it before they bought all their laptops. And iPads could take advantage of this. We don't know what new devices are and what they'll be, but they all come with wireless. So this is a foundation technology, an infrastructure technology that would have a longer lifetime than just the PC and the laptop purchases. At least maybe 7-year life cycle or counting life to it until it's fully depreciated, and infrastructure. The cost is estimated at up to $200,000 maximum, and the benefits are great. One note that we did talk about, allowing teachers and students to potentially use their own computers. That's a hard thing to talk about sometimes because of where are they going to come from and how we policy that, but we did keep bringing it up over and over again. I have not seen much evidence in other schools where they allow that, but in the workplace where I come from, it's becoming a trend for employees to bring their own computers because IT can't keep control over what's happening in the computing environment, that There is a trend, bring your own laptop to work. So companies are giving employees stipends to purchase their own equipment, and then they take it with them and they come and go, and it's not an asset of the company, and it just works that way. So, and saves them money too, the companies. Time frame on this is 2 to 3 years to implement. And again, that's infrastructure, so it stays for 7 years, doesn't have to be replaced. And then Brian's pointed out, and other committee members, some of the schools already are at a point where they just upgraded some of their wireless technology, so there's a variance in age on what's out there. So, that's a benefit to that project. We wouldn't have to touch every school as much as some others. Okay. The last thing is, what are our plans of action going forward? And this is where we're rallying a lot of volunteers, a lot of support. The top priority is to develop financial plans. Working with the Board of Ed, Dr. Dolan, Mitch Slater, a line item in the school budget to support these initiatives and programs. This is capital, not expense. It's yearly recurring costs. Look to the board for direction on how to come up with financing options. Because it's recurring. It's not this is not a fundraising activity because it's going to come back to us the next year. Leasing versus buying. I know we used to lease the equipment. So those are options to look at. Maintenance, support, and professional development should be included in that budget. The second priority is develop fundraising activities and events, which the PTC Tech Committee and the PTC are already aggressively working on and energized to raise money in conjunction to help supplement the financial plan. We match the money with the needs. We get a lot of questions on fundraising because there's a lot of fundraising already happening at the local PTOs. So how do we allocate and prioritize the money? So we work to match the money with the needs because there's a lot of good fundraising happening at the local PTOs. And target that money to the high school, middle schools, and K through 5. The next part of the plan going forward is to come up with detailed costs, resources, timing, and level of effort for these projects once we decide exactly what we want to buy. And that would be led by the PTC Tech Committee working with Brian, CTO of the school district. Align the projects with the needs. We need to gather more requirements, and we could join with the community during implementation phases. So like implementing the wireless network, we could have students learn about wireless technologies and help us with that. And then the last area is awareness, communications, working with the Board of Ed, get local school buy-in, close the loop with local PTOs, build awareness across the school community, and gain both financial and resource support. And the last thing, I think it would be a good idea for us to look at other schools in the state or out of the state with site visits. I'd recommend that we do a site visit to at least 2 schools to see, to really go visit and see. When you go visit and see, then you really get engaged and understand why they did it, how they did it, and what the benefits were. That's pretty much it. Any questions? The last slide is not necessary. Okay.
First, an incredible amount of work went into this report. Thank you very
You're welcome.
much.
Okay.
It's very informative.
Okay.
It takes your breath away, really,
Okay.
to think about the scope of what you all addressed. Thank you.
Okay.
Does
You're
anyone have any questions? I can add that it was a lease-to-purchase program for the
Yes.
equipment. It's just for those who might be watching that we do own those computers that we leased ultimately. Anybody?
I
Mitch?
just think, Mark, I think it's important to let everybody know your background and some of the background of the folks that are working on the committee and, the experience that you've had in this field. That's
Yeah, my
important.
background, I've been in technology my whole career. I studied engineering in college, and I'm in IT management. Worked for some large Fortune 500 companies and managed a lot of infrastructure and system projects. So, I enjoy doing this kind of work. The other committee members mostly have technology backgrounds, some don't, but they have an interest they're motivated by improving the quality of education through technology and keeping our students current.
And I think the committee members really have shown quite a commitment, and a number of them, I see them in the audience tonight, which is another testimony to that.
Well, the school system is awfully fortunate to
Okay.
have this depth of talent being volunteered for this project. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you're welcome
Thank
very
you
much.
to the
Okay,
committee.
thank you. Yes.
That's an important point, the letter that was already went home to parents.
Yes, so in the back-to-school letter that was distributed in just last week, talked about our committee, talked about some of these findings, asked for donations, and we're starting to get donations coming in to the PTC council, and it's very positive to see that response. So, thank you.
Thank you, and we look forward to working with the committee going forward. So just this past Sunday was, as everyone knows, the 10th anniversary of 9/11, and that was certainly an event that hit home personally to our community as well as our state and our country. And we certainly still have children in our district who were very personally impacted by that, as well as families. So we planned in advance for how we were going to deal with that in the schools, especially since it's right as we start our school year. And you know, a lot of things are taught in school, including how do students learn about history, including some recent history. So tonight we have our supervisor of social studies, Andrea Brennan, who's going to talk to us a bit about how did the schools handle 9/11, the 10th anniversary of 9/11 in the schools in the past few days. Sure. No, that's fine.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Walker, Dr. Dolan, and board members for inviting me to speak on such a timely topic. Like Dr. Dolan said, we did really start our planning process back in June. So basically, I had a number of discussions with administrators and teachers, and we had decided that since it comes so early to the start of school, that we would really focus our attentions at the middle school and at the high school in terms of recognizing the anniversary of 9/11. So I would like to share with you the building level activities as well as some of the sample of the classroom activities. It'll be tough to do justice to everything that was done, but I'm going to try. So at the high school, the intermediate schools, we decided that September 9th was going to be the commemoration day, and at all three schools, they had a moment of silence on September 9th at 8:46, which was the time that the first plane hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At the high school, during homeroom, the chorus did a beautiful job of singing America the Beautiful. At all three schools on September 9th, social studies teachers were asked to teach lessons about September 11th. And actually, the teachers, many of the teachers did multiple day lessons because it's tough to talk about this topic in just one class period. So I'll go through and talk about some of those activities. In addition, the new online website of the electronic version of the HiZi created a commemoration page, and they included, and hopefully this will come up, they included articles and photos as well as some specific announcements that were taking place within the community of Westfield. And oops, ask me later. And if you are interested, you can go onto their news tab and take a look at some of the things the students created on HiZi on their electronic version. So on the yes. How can you get the website is, you can't really read it that well. It's www.whshizi.com. Yeah, it's really brand new, just released, so it's pretty interesting. At the department level, we began talking about this, like I said, in June, and over the summer, email resources were shared with the teachers, and then on September 6th, our first department meeting to open up the school year, we spent quite some time at the intermediate and high school department meetings talking about themes and how to approach this topic. And the teachers had some very thoughtful, great ideas. So we spent a lot of time hashing that out in our department meeting. We also worked in tandem with the guidance department at Roosevelt, Edison, and at the high school to identify students and families that were personally affected 10 years ago. And sometimes the information came from teachers that had former students, and sometimes it came from administrators, and the teachers were notified that they had a student in class that had suffered a loss. The guidance department were asked to phone call home and notify the parents of the activities that would be taking place on September 9th in school. And we were able to identify 6 families in these 3 schools that were impacted, and 8 students were identified, and those families were notified. So some of the themes that emerged when I was thinking about what to include in the presentation this evening, like I had said, there were so many great things that were going on over the course of about 3 days, but specifically on Friday the 9th. Many of the teachers were focusing on what happened, clearing up some misconceptions of the events that took place 10 years ago, and also obviously placing this event into context so we can kind of make sense of it, take a look at lessons learned and where we go, predictions for the future. And really, if you can read the slide, remembering, honoring, and learning were the 3 themes that emerged as I took a look at lesson plans, and we discussed things, and as I went around and did some observations. So I'll talk first about remembering, and I would like to use an example of a 9th grade classroom. It's, I think for a lot of teachers, we were kind of apprehensive about this commemoration because it's an event that we definitely lived through and remember, and it hits home. But students don't really remember this as an event that they lived through, since many of our 9th graders were 4 years old when the attacks took place. So one particular 9th grade teacher used interactive timelines to outline the chronology of events of that day on September 11th. And then through the timelines, that elicited a lot of questions from the students about, why did these things happen, and the chain of events. The teacher then asked students what did they remember, if anything, about that day. And one 9th grade student recalled that he remembers it was an important day or a different day because mom and dad both came to pick him up at preschool, and that had never happened before. A couple of students remembered seeing some of the smoke from the towers, in downtown Westfield. At that point in the lesson, the teacher and the in-class support teacher actually shared their personal experiences of what happened at Westfield High School that day. And again, that elicited a lot of questions and comments. And then the teacher shared a New York Times newspaper from September 12th, 2001, and she talked about how this was a primary source document, which really led into a perfect segue on how historians study history and how they make sense of difficult events. And she, talked with the students about the fact that historians use personal accounts, they use secondary sources like the information provided in the interactive timeline, and they use primary source documents like the New York Times article that was brought in. So that was a wonderful way to kind of talk about the events in a 9th grade classroom. Many teachers spoke about the impact of September 11th 10 years later. One 6th grade teacher used Radio Rookies, which is actually Radio Rookies is a, excuse me, let's see here, get back to my slide here. I wanted to show you. Radio Rookies is a partnership project between NPR and between NPR and the National 9/11 Memorial Museum. And basically what this program does is give young people the opportunity to come in and record radio programs. And the goal of this particular program was to share stories of 6 young people that actually lived through 9/11. And it doesn't look like my link is working, but the one program, the students listened to 3 personal accounts from young people that lived through 9/11. The one that they listened to, his name was Jolie Rizzolo, and he was a 6-year-old that was living in Paramus, New Jersey during the attacks. And he remembers watching television and you know, looking at the events through the TV as they were happening. When he got older, he decided that he wanted to kind of honor the victims, and he actually organized something called the Freedom Walk in Paramus to honor those people in his community. And last year, 1,000 people showed up for the Freedom Walk to honor the victims of 9/11. So that podcast was shared with the 6th grade students in class as a part of the lesson. In 10th grade classes, students read an article called How We've Changed Since 9/11. And this article really outlined the impact on different aspects of American society, on the economy, on politics, on government and citizenship. One of the things that was really discussed was the Patriot Act and security versus individual rights and liberties. And one 9th grade class actually took a look at a webcast, and the link is up there, but I don't think I'm going to try to link to it, just in the interest of time. But the webcast was basically created by the Foreign Policy Research Institute, and students were able to listen to experts in foreign policy and college professors and actually ask them questions about the impact of 9/11 10 years later. One 7th grade teacher decided to address 9/11 by the theme of honoring those we have lost, and this is the essential question he started out with: how do we honor those that we have lost? He took the opportunity to talk about how, you know, who do we memorialize, what's the appropriate kind of memorial, as well as what kind of community members and stakeholders you need to include in deciding what that memorial will look like. He led the students on a number of virtual tours of different memorials, and then he used the virtual tour that's available through the 9/11 Memorial Museum. So that was basically how one 7th grade social studies class learned about the events of 9/11. Perspectives is a big theme in social studies. So one of the other, that was kind of one of the other themes when we talk about remembering and learning 9/11. In anthropology classes at the high school, this teacher decided to compare post-9/11 America to what America looked like after the bombing in Pearl Harbor. Students learned about how our nation reacted to these 2 events. They evaluated the mood of the nation as well as the collective actions that the government and the citizens took in response to those 2 events. So the students spent a lot of time comparing and contrasting, you know, post 9/11 and post Pearl Harbor, and they really got a lot out of it. In many 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes, teachers collaborated and created a lesson that I thought was very powerful, so I'd like to share it with you. Basically, these students were focusing on placing 9/11 in context, taking a look at our recent past and how we can connect it to the present. Students in these classes did 2 readings on 9/11, one that was pretty informational and factual. The second reading talked more about the perspective of creating an identity and differences between nationalities and differences within the same country and differences within our global environment. After the students did these readings, they basically had class discussions where they evaluated the concept of terrorism by answering some important questions through their class discussions. They explored topics like, what are the motivations for terrorism? Why was the United States attacked? how great is the threat of terrorism currently in our present-day society, and what is the best way to prevent terrorism. The discussions were very interesting to sit in on, and some of the key points that the students brought up was the potential for war or the potential for peace in the future, as well as, you know, what is the potential for intolerance versus coexistence. So those were some of the themes that that were coming out in the class discussions. After students discussed, they were asked to respond to a reflective question. Do the things that make us different really divide us? So talking about in the future, you know, what kinds of things does the future hold? And I would like to read just a brief, I'm not going to read the whole response, but from a 10th grade student, I'm just going to read a brief excerpt that, you know, these were her thoughts after reading and discussing this with her classmates. She says, we are only divided as a people if we let the things that make us different become more important than the things that make us the same. To divide in math means to take away and to have less than we had before. When we focus on the things that make us different, such as race, gender, nationality, and religion, that's when people as a whole can be divided. People around the world can be separated either in identity or location, but to allow differences in the human race takes away who we are as a people. So I thought that was pretty powerful, so I wanted to share that with you. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
You all spent a great deal of time making the Friday before 9/11 an informative and important day for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Dr. Dolan, does that conclude the
That
superintendent's
concludes the
report?
superintendent's reports,
There's
yes.
no one else coming? Okay.
But they were all important.
They were all very important. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. I would now ask that we approve the minutes of the special board meetings held on July the 26th and the private minutes from that same evening of July the 26th. May I have a second, please? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Mrs. Clancy, personnel.
I'm just going to take a deep breath for a minute. It's really a lot of
Understand.
powerful information. Thank you so much to everyone. Really, very thought-provoking. A lot of hard work by so many folks. Okay, so on to personnel. I would like to make a motion to ask for the board's approval of personnel items number 1 through 16. I have a second.
Second.
Just a quick note on item number 13. For the boys soccer, it should read boys soccer junior varsity assistant coach for Andrew Bausch. And also, just quickly before I turn it over to Dr. Dolan, on item number 10, we are approving staff for unpaid volunteer coaches for volleyball. There are quite a few, and we just want to thank them so much. We really do appreciate so many of the folks that help out with our coaching on a volunteer basis. And I think that's it from my notes. I think we have a retirement.
We have a retirement, and then I was going to, actually, we have 2 of the people listed here or here tonight. I was going to just introduce someone to introduce them.
Okay.
So first, the retirement. We have one retirement. It's the retirement of a longtime Westfield High School secretary. Teresa Malik has spent almost 25 years in the district, much of it as the high school attendance secretary. She's enjoyed working with hardworking, caring, and dedicated colleagues, but is looking forward to a new chapter in her life, and we certainly wish her the best in her retirement. We also have a number of appointments, including some coaching positions, and actually, since we have our supervisor of athletics here, maybe I'll ask her to go to the podium to introduce 2 new coaches who are on the agenda.
It's with a lot of excitement that I introduce our head basketball coach as Daryl Palmeri and our head ice hockey coach, Sean Cromarty. Daryl has grown up in Union County, so he's a Union County boy, certainly knows what he's getting into in this position. Comes from teaching at Milburn, coaching at Parsippany, played Division I basketball, and certainly is ready to go. Thank you. Sean is also a New Jersey native. Actually went to a boarding school in Canada for ice hockey and academics, of course, and also went on to become a Division I ice hockey player out in Colorado, and was drafted into the NHL, into the minor leagues, I believe, right? And so he joins us as our head ice hockey coach, and I can't tell you how excited this is to have this nice, fresh beginning to two of our biggest programs. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the personnel items that have been seconded? All right, let's vote.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstad?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Matesic?
Yes.
Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
Thank you. And welcome to Westfield School District. She says you know what you're getting into. Freshman night was last night at the high school, and I believe you, Mrs. Mayberry, announced that, or maybe it was Mr. Renwick who said it was one of the most winning schools in history since they've been keeping track. So, welcome, gentlemen. Thrilled you're here.
No pressure.
No pressure. Mrs. Clancy, facilities.
Okay, so facilities met at 7 o'clock this evening. So I will give you just a brief update of, we had a short period of time to discuss quite a bit of information. Haven't processed a lot of it yet, so please chime in, fellow facility members, if you feel that I've missed anything. We briefly went over the summer projects that were completed, which everyone received a list of that we had discussed in our last meeting. All of those projects had been completed, the parking lots and paving, and all went well, repairing of roofs, and they came in at the cost that we had predicted. The future projects that we discussed were the Edison windows, the renovation of the boys and girls bathrooms at Edison, the repairing of Jefferson Field, and the replacing of the Franklin and McKinley boilers, which is and has been our top priority. And we did receive the authorization of the board for those projects pending full cost. So we have asked that the architect go out to get that information and get some bidding prices, and we will come back with that once that's in. Probably, you were saying maybe around January, Mr. Yanaro?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be the intention of going out to bid.
And particularly on the boilers, to get that moving so that that would be done and in place for next winter. Not this winter, but the following winter, because we had discussed that the project would have to be done by October by state regulations in order for the boilers to be replaced. Jefferson Field, just a quick update, and I can update you from the Rec Commission report as well. There is going to be some work that will probably take place from the town the end of October, beginning of November for the storm drains. And once that is completed, then we will have a discussion about the work that could be done after those repairs are taking place. We touched base on the solar piece, and Mr. Matesic, do you want to give us that update on the solar? Would that be all right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, so just a reminder, over the past approximately 18 months, we've put out to bid solar on the district's rooftops and carports. We went through one round of RFP. We got no bids back from the various vendors, and It was disappointing, obviously. We had put a lot of time into showing vendors the various facilities. A lot of time went into the process itself and the proposal. By state law, we're allowed to redo for a second time the RFP process, so we did that. We put it back out to bid. Some of the same and some new vendors came in and looked at our facilities and rooftops and potential for carports. Unfortunately, once again, we had no bids for the work. By state law, what that means for us is that we can now talk singly with potential vendors. So it's no longer a broad process where everything is put on the website. You can only talk to vendors through public meetings. We're able to now talk to vendors and specifically say, what is it about the project that really caused you not to provide a bid, and that maybe they wouldn't have wanted to do that with other potential competitors, but they may be more willing to talk with us, and we may be able to work toward a solution with a particular vendor. The only caveat, and I guess there are a few caveats, but the real caveat is that a final solution would have to stay within the ambit of the RFP that we put out. But it does allow us to talk specifically with vendors and get into more detail as to what they may be able to do or not do. So from a timing perspective, Vince has started that part of the process. He's reached out to the last round of bidders to see who's interested in coming to talk to us. We have talked to one potential vendor, and we're going to continue that. And so we're not giving up. We unfortunately, the rooftops aren't in great shape, and that's the key, I think, determinative factor as to why we're not getting successful. We haven't been successful in the process, but we'll keep pushing. It's important.
Yeah, it is important, and energy efficiency is long-term, protecting the environment and being conscious of doing the right thing environmentally, so it isn't something that we should stop looking at, and it's also changing constantly.
Right.
So one door closes, another one opens up, so keep plugging away on that. I think that's about it. Did I miss anything? Anybody else want?
So just as far as timetables are
Yes.
concerned, you're looking to go out to bid probably around January about boilers. Jefferson, we're waiting on drain fixes, solar, we're on our times, we're managing that one. Where are we with the others? Just
So the
timing?
renovating of the boys and girls bathroom will also come in around January.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's all together. Got
And holding off on further discussion on the Edison windows.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
McKinley and Franklin.
Thank you. And thank you all for your time on a long evening already. Mrs. Lights? No report. Policies, we have a policy meeting this Thursday, so we'll have a report at the next meeting. Mrs. Carey?
We have a curriculum meeting on Thursday also, so we will have a report at the next meeting. Oh, busy Thursday.
This Thursday?
This Thursday.
Excellent. Mr. Vitesse, Finance.
All right, under finance, I'd ask the board to consider proposals 1 through 6. Second.
Second.
I had no comments on the various proposals. If there's questions, we can certainly entertain them. Call for a vote.
Mr. Matesic?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Mr. Finn?
Yes.
Ms. Kerstad?
Yes.
Mrs. Lights?
Yes.
Mr. Slater?
Yes.
I would ask the board to note the notes for the record. Is there any legislation? Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business?
I just have Mitch brought up at the last meeting about having a student rep on the board, and he was, I think, talking specifically in light of our implementation of the new HIB policy, and after thinking about it between meetings, I think it's something that we should truly investigate, because I think having a student voice at the table, particularly in light of the HIB policy, to get a pulse on the climate of what's happening at the schools would be very beneficial. And I'm just putting it out there, wondering what we do, if, how to move that forward or decide not to move that forward.
As a Board of Ed, typically the way we work is, because I wrote it down from a week ago
I
or
don't
2 weeks
remember
ago.
when it was.
The last meeting when Mr. Slater brought it up, that it was an item to come before policies.
Ah, okay.
Because that's how we would function, is with a different policy. And you sit on policies.
I do.
And we're meeting Thursday. So that is typically how it would happen. We'd report out from policy.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would suggest that you have a conversation that includes this information that came from National School Boards Association. I think Mitch sent it to us. Students on board, which may not in fact have students on the board, but has a conversational component to it that gives students the opportunity to speak or board members to speak with students about points of view.
Which ties back to your point. So that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Someone from the community sent us that, I think.
All right, thank you. Ad hoc committee, ad hoc committee reports.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, go.
This is quick. So as one of the outcomes, the next steps from our ad hoc development committee meeting in June, we were waiting for receipt of a proposal from Grant Pelton to provide us fundraising and development consulting. And we have that proposal, and I'm going to be convening a meeting with the development committee hopefully in the next couple of weeks to discuss that and how we're going to look to pay for that.
Look forward to hearing that. Thank you.
And the Ad hoc Technology Committee will be having its first meeting next Wednesday, the 20th. Mr. Walker will be joining us for that. And we certainly will be addressing what we heard tonight from the PTC Technology Committee and really taking a close look at what's happening in the schools now and what is the immediate need and how best to work in conjunction with the great work that these folks have already done. So we'll be immediately addressing that in our first meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Liaison reports. Okay, Ms. Lights.
I attended Union County Ed Services Commission meeting on September 7th. And Ms. Walker, I just want to give you their copy of their policy on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, so you can get a flavor for it. I think it's basically replicates ours. It's the Strauss Esme version, but I thought it would be beneficial to take a look.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So last night I attended the Rec Commission meeting, and they pretty much just gave an update of closing of the pool. They really had an incredibly successful season. So much work was done, and they were able to stay open through the hurricane. It was very impressive through the hurricane. I think they only closed on Sunday and maybe for a couple of hours on Saturday. They never lost power. They got their staff in to clean up, and they reopened on Monday, and it was very impressive. So they had a wonderful season. They talked a little bit about their rec camps on our playgrounds, and they had about 860 students attending, and a lot of younger children, so a lot of kindergarten, first graders. So they anticipate that their numbers will probably even go up next year. And then just quickly to update you, I think at our last meeting we discussed the Rec Commission is applying for Union County Field of Dreams grant, and which is a grant of about $1 million that would be divided up amongst towns in Union County. And they have applied for the grant. Once again, they apply every year, and included us as a co-applicant for Jefferson Field is the application. So that is moving forward. It was submitted by the Rec Commission, and hopefully we will hear word back sometime, I think by November, they thought.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Slater.
I attended this afternoon Roosevelt School's first PTSO meeting. I always get that wrong. And one thing I just wanted to highlight, obviously a very successful first couple of weeks of school. Mr. Carey talked specifically about the new teachers and what an immediate impact they're having, and he wanted me to make sure I specifically thank everyone at this table for the third guidance counselor, who is already making quite an impact. And one thing I just wanted to add that I thought was terrific, the first, they don't really call it a dance, a gathering, whatever, their first social that's coming up, instead of charging an admission, they're asking people to bring school supplies for Cranford. And there was a specific request for that, and that's word's been spread out in the Roosevelt community, and I know everybody is working hard towards that. So I thought that was excellent.
Great, thank you very much.
I just want to let everybody know that the special education parent meeting is tomorrow at Edison in the library. Their business meeting starts at 7, and their general meeting starts at 7:30, where there'll be a conversation with Dr. Weissman and Andrea Lowe and myself. So please come.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to report that at this table, we had discussed, maybe back in June, I believe, about meeting with Senator Kane about the funding formula and how it impacts Westfield. That meeting occurred yesterday morning. It was myself, Mr. Matesic, Mr. Slater, and Mrs. Carey, and it was a wonderful meeting. I believe for next steps, and as far as we're being able to report out on how and what we're going to do with all the information, because it was a wonderful time spent together talking about ideas. When the superintendent and Mr. Matesic and I sit down next Monday, because this was after our weekly meeting, so it'll be next Monday, we'll come up with some ideas about how we can move forward with this, and it will involve the whole board, I believe, and because funding formula is such an important issue. So at the next meeting. All right. Anyone else? Okay. I can now recognize the public for non-agenda items. If you please state your name and your address.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name's Diana Dobashevitz. I live at 1040 Harding Street. I have 4 children in the district, 1 at the high school, 2 at Edison, and 1 at Washington. My Edison sons, I have 2 boys there, 1 in 8th grade and 1 in 6th grade. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with what happened the first day of school this year, but on the first day of school, the redistricted Washington children take buses to school. This year on the first day of school, our bus route is for 46 children because of the bubble year. We had a bus that showed up for 15 kids. By the time it got to my children's stop, there wasn't enough seats on the bus. There were children that were left behind. The bus driver, of course, was as nice as she can be. What was she going to do? She had a bus that held 15 seats. She left kids behind. I myself called my husband and told him to run over with the car, and we took 6 children. Several other parents had to drive children to school. And as I said, there were children who were left behind at their stops because there just wasn't any room for them. Upon calling the transportation office, Jenny was in the office because last year we didn't get a bus the first day at all. So this year we've learned a lesson, and at 7 a.m. there was somebody in the office to answer the phones. All she could say was that she was working on it. The problem I have is that someone should have been working on it prior to the first day of school. Today is day 5, and still the buses are not running properly. Bus drivers don't know where they're going. Children are getting off on Mountain Avenue that live on Woodbrook Circle and walking home because bus drivers don't know where they're going. And quite frankly, as a taxpayer who lives in this town because of the school district, I am horrified, and it's just unacceptable that this happens. And I work, and in my corporate world, I would have been fired. No one here is held accountable. We claim that we have care and concern for our children, but clearly, who is caring and concerning for our children? Because no one has called the parents. No one has told the students that they apologize. Mrs. O'Brien did. She pulled the kids out of their classrooms and had an assembly. It's not her place to apologize. It wasn't her fault. I came and I met with Dr. Dolan unannounced, and I was speaking with her, and I asked to get a phone call that day to tell me who was going to provide information, who was going to meet these children, explain to them what bus they were supposed to take to get home. Because not taking the bus in the morning, they had no idea what bus they were supposed to get on. No one called me. I got a phone call from one of my fellow parents who said, oh yes, the assistant principal, Mr. Dulks, or I don't really know how to pronounce his name, was the one who was going to meet the children, explain to them what bus they were supposed to get on, and still to this day I'm waiting for a phone call. I did get a phone call from Mr. Yaniro explaining that it's being worked on. It wasn't until yesterday that someone from the district got on the bus and rode the bus with the driver. Still, my children didn't get home and off the bus till 3:20 and not at their stop, because the bus driver still to this day, day 5 of school, doesn't know the route. So now we're working on the route. Why wasn't this done prior to the first day of school? It is unacceptable. It is just incomprehensible. It's just, I don't know. It baffles me that this is allowed and that we allow this to go on. So I would like to know who is going to be held accountable, and besides giving the bus route back to the bus driver or to the bus company, something has to be done. I offered to Jenny many times since June. I've called every other week, and I said I'd put together a panel of parents that could sit down, as Bob Berman did 2 years ago, and I was part of that panel, and we worked on the bus route based on where the children lived, and I was brushed off, and I was told, I have your number, thank you for offering, we'll take care of it, it's being taken care of, it's being taken care of. Every day up until the first day of school, I was calling, many other parents were calling. We didn't have bus schedules, we didn't have the route system, and then it comes 2 days before school starts. And then yet on the first day of school, we're still not prepared. So, completely unacceptable. I don't even know if all of you were aware, because other than one of you, only one of you has a child in the same situation on the bus. Anybody with an answer?
Of course, the Board of Ed was kept apprised of what was going on. We all got the email from the superintendent and from Mr. Uniro about what was happening that day. Dr. Dillon, I assume you'll explain about the Vogel situation.
Yes, I know, it's always the bus company's fault, but you know what? Granted, there's maybe some faults, some confusion, but as I told Dr. Dolan on the first day, who double-checked with the bus company? Who triple-checked with the bus company? We teach our students to proofread their work, to double-check everything before it's submitted, and yet we're not doing it here. How are we teaching our children to do this when no one here is doing it? 2 years in a row. Last year, there was no bus at all. What happens with the children whose parents go to work? I, for 2 years now, have gone to work 4 hours late because I go to work at 7 a.m. I am at my job at 7 a.m. But on the first day of school, I like to be with my children. So I see my high schooler off, I like to see my middle schoolers off on the bus, and 2 years in a row, I have to drop my elementary school child and get her a different ride because I have to deal with the middle school situation. And we were all promised that this was going to be a smooth transition, and clearly, as we all said 2 years ago, it's not been. And for the past 2 years, my 8th grader's been on the bus, besides a few tweaks here and there, and the biggest one of not having a school bus the first day of school, which is unimaginable. It's been okay, but this is just unacceptable. And we can't keep blaming it on the bus companies, because last year we blamed it on Dapper, this year we're blaming it on Vogel. When is it going to be the district's fault? When is it the district's accountability? And when is the district going to take ownership for their mistake?
Okay. I don't know if Mr. Uniro has anything to add to it. Certainly, as I did speak with you on the first day, you shouldn't have to be worrying about a smaller bus coming for a large number of students. That shouldn't be a hard concept. I was told that it was reviewed with the bus company. Mr. Uniro is probably going to know a little more detail than I do on this, but that it was reviewed. I was told that it was the bus company. the bus did go back on that first day to pick up any additional students. But still, any parent who was expecting their student to be picked up at the designated bus stop, and some parents let their kids go and had to go to work. I mean, you made the decision and you were able to be there and you were able to take your own action, but I know there was at least one parent who had, where both parents had sent the child to the bus stop, and then they're at work and they hear that story. That's a horrible thing. I mean, it absolutely is. We did have the bus go back, but that doesn't take away those moments where the child was waiting for the bus to come back.
And let's keep in mind, these are sixth graders
Right.
who are now going to a redistricted school without half of their friends,
Absolutely.
never been on a bus, and going to a brand-new school. And it was raining. And on the way home, we didn't learn our lesson in the morning. On the way home, they all got lost. There were children dropped off at ShopRite on North Avenue just to get off the bus because they were like, you know what, I can find my way home from here. Let me off the bus. And the bus driver did. Kids walked off on Mountain Avenue. Why is the bus on Mountain Avenue in the first place? Is that really acceptable as parents? I'm sure you would all be outraged.
I would agree.
I'm done. I'm going to let my peers
I have the
finish.
other bus issue. My name is Marie Guarnucci. I'm at 54 Michael Drive, and we're on the other bus that had the other issues that continue, and it goes beyond first day issues. I wanted to thank Mr. Yaniro for taking my call the second day of school, because at that point, my son had come in screaming, and I had had it too. Based on what Diana said, I would be tickled if my child got off the bus at 3:20. Instead, he's walking in at 5 to 4. I would like to ask the board to rectify the changes made to my son's Edison bus route this year. My son Michael was a Washington student who is now in 8th grade at Edison. For the past 2 years, he has ridden the bus to and from our neighborhood, and that experience has been very positive. The first day issues last year were a glitch. We knew Ginny, I knew something happened. It was all fine when all was said and done, but I can't say the same at all this year. Nothing about this has been positive on the bus this year. Having followed Board of Ed discussions this year concerning the budget, I was well aware of the cost-saving action that was going to be put in place. That being that the small bus that was previously used to transport the G2 students was being eliminated, and these children would be accommodated on a larger second Edison bus. In theory, this sounded okay. So shortly before school started, I received my son's bus route, which is Edison 7, and his bus now picks up the GT children. On paper, this route is actually a nightmare as well. The amount of time for the ride to school was scheduled for 37 minutes for him, which actually means 47 minutes, because he's supposed to be at the stop 10 minutes before because the bus won't wait, so they have like a 10-minute window where we can actually come 10 minutes early. So now we're up to a 47-minute, 50-minute commute for him. His ride home is scheduled for the same. I don't know anybody who can do his bus route in that amount of time. This bus is literally going from one end of town to the other, picking up children in Washington, Wilson, and Franklin school district areas, or school areas. Bad enough on paper, right, but the reality is even worse. As I explained to Mr. Yaniro on the phone last week, on average, he's getting to school at about 8 o'clock, just before first period begins. So now there's really no chance of them ever going in and getting any kind of extra help, any kind of assistance, meeting with the teacher, anything like that in the morning. But the ride home is even worse. He's generally walking in the house anywhere from 3:50 to 3:55. While I was sympathetic in trying to say some of this is just because of the bus company not sending a driver who knew what the route was, and then he told the kids he didn't know what he was doing, which kind of sent an air of panic through the bus, or that he didn't follow the bus route. Michael was dropped off last, even though he should have been like the third to the last drop off, so he's not following the bus route. My understanding toward Vogel is gone. Aren't we hiring them to do a job, and shouldn't we be making sure they do it? By showing up on time, by knowing where the bus route is, those kind of things. Let's put Vogel's unprofessionalism aside. Even if the route goes off as planned on paper, the route is too long and not consistent with attending a local in-town school. It's certainly not consistent with what we were told 3 years ago and assured that our children would not be spending that kind of time on a bus. It's not consistent with equality among schools. No Roosevelt child is commuting as long as any child from Edison is on a bus right now. I did look up New Jersey Transit. Michael's bus time is scheduled to be a 7:18 pickup he can get to the Port Authority in 5 more additional minutes. That's how long he's on this bus in the morning. In closing, I just want to know what's going to be done to correct this. I look around at the board and feel pretty confident in saying that none of you would want your child on the bus as long as we have our children on right now. What these kids are experiencing is certainly not the local school experience, and something needs to happen to correct this bus route. I think even if you fix all the Vogel issues, that bus route is ridiculous. He's going from Springfield Ave all the way back to Franklin and then over to Edison, and then the reverse home. He should not be on a bus for that long, and we were told that wasn't going to happen. And again, it sounded, we can eliminate, we can just consolidate. There are 17 stops on that bus, and it's just not, it's not right. It's not fair, it's not right, and I'm wondering where we're going with this. I really am, because we're into the second week of school now. He can't sign up for activities because a lot of them start at 4 o'clock. He's not getting home on time. And I have 2 other children. We also lost our Washington bus stop. That was something we were supposed to have. I had 2 other children at Washington. Any thoughts on, is this?
Well, yes, if I can make a comment. The first day mix-up was inexcusable. It was a result of an internal miscommunication at the bus company. It could have been avoided had the drivers taken their practice runs that they're expected to do. That did not happen in all cases and caused a lot of problems. I do know that our transportation supervisor did meet with the bus company a number of times over the summer to try to develop the most effective and efficient routes, and apparently that didn't work to...
Well, 3 years ago, we all met together and came up with a good route. Why didn't the same happen this year? I kept waiting to get, just what Diana said, I kept waiting to get contacted. We met here 3 years ago. I just don't understand how this happened.
Okay. Well, we have been doing a lot. Since then, that driver has been replaced with a different driver, particularly on that route, the E14, and we're making sure that future drivers will get the appropriate supervision and lessons and so on the routes. But, they have improved since the first couple of days, and they will continue to improve. We're looking at the routes, we're looking at the stops, and we'll make sure that the routes are appropriate.
Okay, that said, a 17-stop route is appropriate. Because
Because
even with a good driver, you're not getting home in a timely manner.
I didn't say that. I said...
I'm sorry?
I didn't say...
No, I know, but is that being looked at?
Absolutely, absolutely, that'll all be looked at. It is being looked at right now, and we expect to make changes soon.
Okay.
Can I just add one more thing that I forgot to mention before? Why is it that we don't have a bus for GT? GT is a program that we have to offer. It's mandated by the state. I already know all of that because I spoke to Assistant Superintendent Mrs. O'Neill. But here's my problem. So GT is offered if your child passes a test, is accepted into the program. It is a voluntary acceptance. Granted, most parents don't say no. But let's just say the Roosevelt parents who have children in the GT program, let's just say their children weren't in the GT program and they don't live in the Washington Community District. They would have to drive their children to Roosevelt. Why don't we have one bus for the GT kids on the north side that gets picked up at Roosevelt, let's say at 7:40 a.m. The parents are still responsible for getting their children to Roosevelt as they would have been otherwise. One bus, one stop, one small route. I would think that financially it would benefit the district as opposed to having one bus driver with 17 stops. That's the first I heard that. That's absolutely ridiculously insane. And to say that none of us have to take the bus, no, none of us have to take the bus. But quite frankly, this is what the board offered when you guys redistricted our children. You said, we'll make it all nice because we'll give you a bus. And we all said, not when all these kids grow bigger and the classes get larger. So now we're forced to combine the buses with GT kids. Why isn't there one bus for the GT kids? And who's got the bus for the size, the 15? There's 2 buses of 46 and 1 of 15. Who is on that bus? Exactly. Why isn't that bus at Roosevelt picking up the 22 some odd GT kids that Mrs. O'Neill used as a number when I had my conversation with her? She said that wasn't an exact number, but that was a number she threw out at me. So why don't we have a quarter-size bus for those GT kids picking up only at Roosevelt? That would alleviate having to affect the Washington redistricted kids from having to travel all over Westfield just to get to their school. That they're forced to go. It's not voluntary, unlike the GT program.
That would eliminate 6 stops.
Do we know who gets the bus of 15? There's 2 buses of 46 and 1 bus of 15?
They're the kids who go to Roosevelt that live out
Further
past the 2
out.
miles.
Right.
So why aren't they being combined with the GT kids and leaving the Washington kids alone? Because the Washington kids have already bear the burden of alleviating overcrowding 2 years ago. Now the Washington kids are bearing the burden of driving the GT kids and having to go an hour to get to and from school. Maybe you should send them to private school in New York, because they get there a little sooner.
I have a question for somebody who's on the 7 route. If you want to get up to the podium. Just, can you give the board an idea of the first stop? And if you add the 10 minutes that those students are being asked to get to the stop before the time the bus is going to be there, can you just let them know what time in the morning that
The
is?
first stop is
please?
scheduled for 7:08, so 10 minutes before.
6:58,
is
a 6th grade child, 11
Like I said,
years old.
I went on the New Jersey Transit. I'm saying this just does not seem right.
They're getting up
And
earlier
they
than
can get
most
into the Port Authority quicker than they can get to
high schools.
Edison.
Most people that work, they're getting up earlier than.
And I'm pretty sure, and I hate to, again, equality. I don't think many, I can't tell you the amount of people who say to me, oh my God, how do you get him out that early? My kid's not even up yet. And I'm like, he's standing out at the bus stop already. Like I said, very happy the first 2 years. Everything ran smoothly. It just has fallen apart this year, and it's not just the glitches of the first day or two. I recognize that'll be worked out. I do. At least I hope so. But there's certain things intrinsic in here that are not going to just be worked out by Vogel. It can't be worked out by Vogel. It's got to be worked out by us.
Right, and actually, I think as Mr. Uniro said, he has been looking at that. He continues to look at it to see what changes can be made. And I know he's gotten some suggestions from parents. I know that's the case. I believe there's a meeting tomorrow, is that correct? So it is being worked on. Also, certainly running it past the company, but not counting on the company to do everything. And some of the people who are here tonight are ones who gave us specific information about the different routes.
Right, I had
So that-
emailed you saying that
Exactly.
this is just crazy.
Right. And a number of people have made specific suggestions, and those have been being worked on. I don't think there's a final product to release right now, but I know they've been being worked on because there are legitimate issues. So
Is
they-
that 15-person bus full? Is that a full bus? Is that at capacity? Because that is, to me, that does seem like a viable option. Send that bus, drop at Roosevelt, continue on. I don't know. I don't know why.
Right. When they develop a bus routes, they do look at, every year, obviously, it is different. Even if it's not a larger number, it's just different where the children are. So, that is done, but it clearly needs to be done again for all the buses. And yes, we can look at the 15-seater as well. It had been looked at, but clearly there are things that are not working, so it needs to be. I know Mr. Uniro was working on it a few times today when I was up and down the stairs visiting him for other things. So it is being worked on.
When the whole thing was discussed, like I said, I've been on top of this. I've been following it. I kind of figured my son was going to be on that combined bus.
Right.
But never thought it would involve 6 stops. I thought it was a couple Wilson kids, and what's the big deal going once across and back home?
Yeah, and truthfully, something like that can change over the summer, because not only do children move in and out, but people go in and out of programs, students go in and out of programs, and 1 or 2 can change the route and make it not doable, So part of it is that things do change over the summer. But clearly, things have been identified, and I know Mr. Uniro has been working on it.
The kids are kind of in a holding pattern. Like I said, he's looking to do stuff at the can't sign up for things.
Right. When it's that late now.
Vincent, so then after your meeting tomorrow, I think in addition to coming back with what might be more efficient bus routes, can you come back with the cost of an additional bus and what it would do? So you come up with your 3 most efficient routes.
Right.
What would a 4th route look like? And how long at the time? So it's just my gut opinion that if it is 50 to 60 minutes each way, that's just too long.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. That is a long route. There's no question about it.
Just a couple other points
we've also
that
thought
came
about
up that if you could consider them in the meeting, whether there could be a Washington bus stop. It sounded like that was something that was eliminated. I don't know, but if that helps people to have a central focal point. And then also, obviously, just making sure the bus drivers aren't stopping at non-designated stops. You know, it sounds like there's more confusion than anything else, but that has to stop immediately, regardless of anything else.
Well, part of that came from they missed the stop.
I understand. I mean, it's
Clearly, this is a painful issue, as difficult as a paper cut when it first happens. You can't get around it. It is annoying, and it takes time to fix. It will be fixed.
Yes, but it should have been done prior to the school year.
Of course, of course.
Not while the school is in session and these children still have to get to school, parents still have to get to work, and we're now working it out. It's unacceptable.
Yes, we heard you. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And it is unacceptable. And it needs to be fixed, and I would agree that it's appropriate to see what it would cost to change the time frames for children. They don't need to be sitting on the bus for this amount of time in the morning nor the afternoon. They need to be available to see teachers in the morning. They need to be available for activities after school. Remembering that when the routes were set up, we were cash strapped, and we have been given an opportunity to have a little more cash at the moment. So a consideration could be made now as to what it would cost and what would the benefit be to our children, and that is our first and foremost consideration. It is unacceptable that these things continue to happen, and I know that the operations department, or I expect that the operations department, is doing whatever they can to make absolutely certain that whether you need to put a person on the bus to ride with them, or shadow the driver, or get the company to have a second person there, we have the ability to fix this. And we need to be focusing on the children.
Okay, hang on one second.
So I just want to make 2 points before we turn it back to the podium. So number one, a best practice that needs to develop out of this is, I was on the phone with Vince and with the bus company last week, and just our past practice has always been, here's the stops, thank you very much, it's your job to figure it out. Well, that's a perfect world, and I know that Vogel's been in the district for a while, and they've worked out other routes, but what they had told us on the phone is that they are given the routes by the districts. We were the only district, and this is the direct quote from the bus company, we're the only district that just gives them stops and doesn't give them routes. There's a big difference, as we have seen turn out here. So telling somebody what street address or what corner is different than saying, what's the safe side of the street to let the child off on? How many blocks do you have to pass? So that's one best practice that needs to develop out of this. The second thing is, we are meeting tomorrow, we're meeting at 4 o'clock. Myself, Vince, Brendan from the bus company, and a parent representative from each of those routes. And I do think one of the things that will come out of that, we will need a financial analysis done of adding another bus or reconfiguring the buses somehow. My daughter just happens to get on the bus at about 7:20-ish, but there are children that are getting on that bus probably at 7:15, I believe that route starts.
7:05.
That's
my child.
That's your, right, but that's the Route 7.
No, that's our route.
Oh, is it 14?
Harding
Okay.
and Sherman.
Harding and Sherman, so, but that's, the full picture is they're at Edison 25 minutes early.
And we're getting there 20 minutes later.
Right, so there's some, common sense is the theme that I think, I just keep coming back to. Common sense was not applied, and it was on both sides. We can't just let this be the bus company. I've been involved with this from the beginning, and personally and as a board member. And that's as full, I think, a picture as you could want. So that's my suggestions.
With all due respect, Dave, I really do want to tell you that in the past, routes have been developed by the business administrator, and appropriate sides of the street have been identified as to the curbside exit and entrance. So
Well, it didn't happen this time.
it may not have.
No, it
I don't
didn't.
know what the situation was.
It didn't happen this time.
But I am well aware that that is a common expectation within this business office, within this district, for the safety of the children.
Exactly, and there are software programs you can use to help you develop those routes.
I just think this is very disturbing. Just for myself, I want to apologize. I just think it's terrible. And I think what we should do right now is to give Dr. Dolan permission to hire a bus tomorrow if she feels that that's what she should do. I don't think we should wait 2 weeks till we have our meeting, and now it's 2 weeks later, and now we approve a bus. I think we should give her permission to do that. We know we have the funds to do it. I mean, only if it's appropriate, if you feel it's appropriate, but I think we should give her permission tonight to do that so that we can rectify this problem tomorrow or
Let's not promise tomorrow.
Well, or tomorrow or the next day, I mean, so we don't have to wait 2 weeks.
As soon as we can, right.
So, I mean, that would, I don't know if that's a motion or what it is.
This is in line with what Ann just said, in that I would, so you're having this meeting at 4 o'clock tomorrow, and the outcome of that meeting is, what are you hoping for? And will whatever it is you hope for be implemented the next day? Are we letting this go for another week? I mean, what is the plan for when we want this alleviated? I mean, obviously, we wanted it alleviated 5 days ago, but now where are we going? That's what I want to know.
I just want to add, as well as Ann, apologizing, because I think that's very important, but also if Vince can look into the fact that I've heard in other districts where we just do our own busing. Maybe Vogel just can't get it done, and maybe we have to look at that. I mean, in my view, I agree with what everyone has said tonight. What happened, inexcusable from our end and inexcusable from Vogel's end, and I don't understand why Vogel didn't do more to correct it. And I'm concerned with that from day one. So I don't know if we can look into an alternative situation, but this clearly didn't work, and there's no excuse at all for what happened.
If I could make a comment.
Can I ask, why did we go with Vogel? It's probably a, I don't know, discussion you guys had. Everything was great with Dapper. I don't understand what the change was.
Vogel took over.
Was it a financial,
No, Vogel took over Dapper.
Okay.
The bus companies always change names.
Okay.
When it requires them.
Okay. Is there money there if this theoretical, let's just hire another bus? Is there still money out there? Or are we talking about a moot point anyway?
Because during the summer, we had an unusual event, as in something that hadn't happened before, that the state did give some additional money. There is the potential of additional money this year. That might not have been the case, wouldn't have been the case last year, but there is this year.
Right, and I'm saying, I followed it, and I saw that, yeah, that makes sense, there's another way to make some money back, but it didn't work. So I didn't know if that money, and I knew the money is there now, because I've watched what happened with my kids' fourth grade section. Is there still money? Or is that money all gone already?
No. The money is not all gone. There is still money, and the board could make that determination.
Okay.
If I could just make a comment, I understand what the bus company manager said, but it's not true, that we just threw lists of kids at the bus company.
That's a different issue, right?
I mean...
Yes, that's what he said.
That's right.
If he's lying.
Well,
if he's
lying, get rid of him.
That's another reason to get rid of him.
It's not a matter of lying, I think it's being uninformed. Because I can tell you personally that Jenny worked very carefully with a particular person at the bus company, as Laura, that she respects a lot in terms of creating these routes. I mean, they created the routes to the best of their ability in terms of where the kids would be dropped off. They wouldn't be dropped off, and kids would have to cross the street and everything. So I think to say that we just did that, just through the names of the kids, is totally untrue.
Okay.
That was worked on.
Should've corrected him on the phone, though.
Whether or not it was done, well, we did. I think he did back off on that statement, but whatever. Whether or not it was done real well, I don't know, but I mean, at least that, that we did work cooperatively with the bus company to try to get it's in their best interest, as it is ours, to get the most efficient, safe routes.
So are we looking to, what's happening after your 4 o'clock meeting?
Well, I think it depends on what the finding is, and then it has to be put into place, including, the details of it. People may decide that certain stops, I know there was some of the suggestions on one of the routes, that there are some stops that are very close and perhaps they could be combined, and that might solve the problem on one of the routes. Something like that, I don't think that's going to be a long time to implement. However, some of the implementation includes informing the parents. So
Right,
it's not going to, I don't believe it's going to be the following day that's going to be implemented, but nor would it take a week, because it's, it's getting the information out to parents so that they have enough time to plan for it, and then changing it. So that one won't take long. The other one talking about the route with the number of, the large number of stops, that might be a different situation. I don't know what the recommendation will be and how long exactly it'll take to implement that. We're certainly not going to look to make this long. We're trying to make it work as quickly as possible with getting the information out to parents.
So what do you need from us in the event you decide you need a fourth bus? Do you need us to approve that tonight? Can you go do that, come back to us in 2 weeks, tell us you did it? What do you want from us?
So if we got the information, Mr. Yaniro, and then informed the board, and they could give us a verbal okay, and we could put the information on the next board meeting, is that?
Well, the process would be to go out to bid for a route, which takes some time, but I think, we might be able to do some kind of an emergency route. If we, we'd have to get county superintendent approval.
So can we give you the authority
I'd have
to
to
do
look
that
into
in the event that's what you determine?
And that's up to the board.
No, certainly
Yes,
make a
I'm in
motion
favor
and a
of doing
second
that,
and do it.
definitely. Let's do it.
So you'll report out to the board by email as soon as you know something?
Right.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Back to you.
I'm Barbara Scrow, 7 Sanders Circle. My daughter is a rider of the E7 bus route, the one with the 17 stops we've been talking about. Several concerns that I'm feeling is who's responsible for the bus route? When I look at the Board of Education committee assignments that were posted on the patch as of September 6th, there's no name assigned to transportation. Is it the business manager, who I understand is filling in for, well, in a temporary position, so I understand that your name is not listed at this point. I'm not sure if it belongs under the long-range planning handle that handles enrollment predictions and planning for such issues as redistricting if needed. Someone needs to take ownership of this. Who's responsible, who's going to follow it through, and resolve it. We have not heard back from the bus company and from any representative. We're on the bus now for 5 days. I've gone to Edison School I've gone to Edison School for pickup. 2 of the 3 buses there are there on time. This E7 route, the bus is pulling in at 3:02. It's late. The other buses are pulling out of the parking lot. If we're going to re-examine bus routes, let's look at what time they're arriving and how they're coming home. Must we go through the middle of town with the most congestion where these kids are being held captive on the bus by drivers who don't know where they're going, who do not have command of the English language, and if there's an emergency on the bus, these children are at risk. It's not the responsibility of an 8th grader to oversee the safety of a 6th grader. Getting off the bus, not knowing where they're going, and chaos. If we're going to be looking at a new route, I would like to request that there be an opportunity to have the bus stop at Washington School so there's a central meeting point for the kids. Several months ago, I also requested, could there be a stop at the Westfield Library? It's a less congested area. Kids could be productive there. This is falling on deaf ears over and over again. You ask for public input, and it is not taken. I understand that it's like running a business, but please listen to us.
Mrs. Scrope, thank you. You're exactly right. I do want to add that the Board of Education does not do operations, which is what this would be. It would be day-to-day, but you have to admit, you've got all of our attention.
Thank you.
We are parents. None of us would disagree with the statement, this is not the job of an 8th grader. But when you look on the Board of Ed's site for someone who's in charge of transportation, you're right, you couldn't find anybody, because it's not what we do. But you have our attention.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to add, if anyone wants to do bullet points or an email about what you want to make sure got heard, like a bus shows up at Edison at 3:02 when school got out at 2:47. key piece of information. Please email the Board of Ed, it's fine. Send it to us, the meeting's at 4 o'clock. We'll make sure Dave gets them all. He's going to the meeting tomorrow. So I realize it's short notice, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday night, and the meeting's tomorrow at 4, but it's the best I can offer up to make sure it got encapsulated and got sent to someone to be at the meeting.
I'd also like to suggest, once a final decision is made, could that be emailed to the parents? We get our mail at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no need to go through regular mail. Fine, that would be great as a second copy, but if you could email the information out in hopes that these routes would be rerouted, resolved, and put behind us, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Smith, 17 Woodbrook Circle. Actually, I'm with Bobby. I think Warren gets on a different bus, though. I get on at 7:15. I have an 8th grader, which actually we're there at 7 because we have to wait 10 minutes, and sometimes we wait 15, 20 minutes. So we're on the bus again with Marie for God knows how long. My question is, does the bus, any bus, Vogel, Dapper, whoever, do they do dry runs prior to the school year starting, the week before?
Yes, they're actually, I can either say it or you can, Ms. DeNiro. They're given 2 days before.
They're supposed to, right.
They're supposed
The
to,
bus
but...
company or,
But
I was
do
told.
they?
Yeah, I can add to that.
Okay.
So what was explained is that with a lot of things with communication, once one piece of communication gets kind of integrated,
Okay.
it gets carried through. The fact that it wasn't communicated clearly what size bus went with what route. The small
So
bus.
who's supposed to
the
check
small
on
bus-
this from this side?
Well, that's where the problem is, right? So the
Okay.
ownership issue as well as the follow-through and then maybe doing the dry run with the bus company could have been
So-
something we could have done differently. But the dry run did occur, but it occurred because the woman that had the small bus, she knew the route. She knew the
Okay.
stops. She didn't have enough
Only
room.
because it's like a teacher who has an IEP prior to the child coming into
I mean,
school, they
it's
have to read the IEP and know about
Exactly,
that child.
a good analogy, but the idea that they didn't do it
Okay.
is not true. They just
Like-
did it on the wrong route.
The first day of school, I have an 8th grader, he's 13, he'll be 14, so he's pretty good with streets, but they were so lost that he got dropped off on the other side of
Right.
Mountain Avenue.
Right.
So I do not allow him to cross Mountain Avenue yet, and he's 13.
Right, that
So if
bus
he
that
gets
went
hit
home
and
that
he got
first day.
killed,
Yep.
who's held responsible for that?
Yes.
The Board of Ed, the town,
I'm
the
not aware,
bus?
but I'm
You know,
assuming
I mean, and he
probably all
calls
of
me
the
telling
above.
me, I'm on the other side of Mountain Avenue. I have to cross the street. Actually, I was home, so thank God I went and got him with 3 other children. So, you know, and I mean,
Unacceptable.
my legs were shaking because, I mean, he is old enough to do that. The third thing is, if you guys are unaware, some of you, not you guys, excuse me, there weren't 17 stops. Who knew? Who's in charge of making the bus stops? Did anyone tell any of you that there's 17 stops at this route? Who's in charge of this?
No.
I would have lost my job. I would have been fired on the spot. Working with children that are getting on a bus, that are being dropped off at ShopRite on North Avenue. This person who's ever in charge of this, I don't know who they are, and really right now, I really don't care, to be honest with you. I don't know if they have children or don't, and I really don't care. But I am beyond upset, and you really don't want to see me upset. My child was on the other side of Mountain Avenue, and some of you didn't even know that on this route, we have 17 stops. That's unacceptable. Who has an answer to that for me? That my son's on the other side of Mountain Avenue, and some of you know that the bus that is picking up my child, because this town is responsible for his education and his well-being on the bus, and none of you knew that there are 17 stops on this bus? You don't have an answer to that?
I'm not sure if it's a full answer for you, but I could just suggest one thing, and that is the board certainly knew that students were dropped off at the wrong place, including on the wrong side
You
of the
knew that,
busy
but you didn't
street.
know that this bus stop had 17
But the board
stops.
members would not know the number of stops on the buses. That's true. There are a number of bus routes, and
But
they
who
would
makes
not
this
know.
up? Who put this bus schedule together? Who works here that puts this bus schedule together?
There's one person in the transportation office, and she works under Mr. Yaniro, and she worked with the bus company to put it together.
Well, I hope she was highly reprimanded for what she did. Highly. And it should be put in the Westfield Leader.
Hi, I'm Rita Riccardi, 133 Woodbrook Circle. Obviously, same issue with the bus. My final comment that I would like to add is that there is no communication at all. I'm not expecting the Board of Ed, you members, to give me an email, but I called every day. It was 5 to 4. I called Edison, and they said, "Oh, we have twins, first of all. Don't they have phones? They didn't call you and tell you that the bus did not come until 3:15 at a 2:47 pickup? 3:15 the first day." That's the other. I know you guys don't know the numbers because you don't have a child there. I'm just telling you, that's a second issue, and I will send that in an email so that you have that. But 2:47, and the bus did not come till 3:15. And then I did get the principal on the phone. They did assure me that they were on the phone with the bus company. But if my child didn't have a cell phone, which not every child does, I don't know. And I had other moms call me saying, "Are your kids home?" Because we're the furthest away, and they weren't. Each day I called, I did speak to that woman, and then she was out Thursday, Friday. I spoke to someone in the office each day. I did call, saying my concern, like, today it's, an hour, it's 5 to 4, it's 4 o'clock, as, other of my neighbors have said. But I have never gotten any communication from the school, from anyone. There's nothing coming out to the people who have been redistricted who are on this bus saying, "Hello, we know there's a problem, we're working on it." And to me, that's what the silence is frustrating, because I'm calling, I'm proactively calling, but I'm home. What about my neighbors who work, and I'm calling them at work, telling them where their kids are? Like, I'm minding this project too, and it's very frustrating to me. So my final point is, we need communication. We need emails. Just send us something and say we're working on it. The point that we're all here says something. It is our children, and we're concerned about it, and I just hope that going forward, when there's an issue and there is a problem with the bus, it's communicated to us, because we don't know. Like, you don't know, unless your kid has a cell phone that calls and says, "Today, Mom, it's almost 10 after 3, the bus isn't here yet." Today, again, the bus was late. So it's still occurring, and I know they're working on it, but I shouldn't be relying on an 11-year-old child to call me to say, "I'm going to be late to get to soccer practice," and I can't get there because I'm at Washington. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at another pickup. Like, logistically, it doesn't work for me because I thought the bus would come on time because it's supposed to. So it's just another, level of frustration.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dillon, she raises a good point, and it might be brought up in the meeting tomorrow, that because we have the capability of grouping parents' emails.
Right.
That we have, and I don't know whether to do it by bus or do it all bus, writing families, for what, but your point's a good one. You send an email to the group. Because, and if you just categorize it by, the E7 bus or whatever, that route, so that's a, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Julietta Albano, 6 Drummond Road. I just want to add something to what Rita said about the bus being late just about every single day since school has started. The other thing is, once those kids walk out of the school at 2:47, that's it. There's nobody watching them. So they're all hanging around, waiting for a bus. Some of them started walking. I don't know where they were going to walk to because they live on the other side of town. My daughter said, "Well, the principal came out and she was trying to, stay with us." But, there's like 50 kids. One woman can't be watching all these kids who are moving all around, waiting, trying to figure out where the bus is. So this is really a safety issue. And I can't, whether the bus, if they don't know the route, that's one thing. But where are they coming from that they can't get to the school at 2:47? Last year's bus driver was there during 8th period. 8th period. And she sat and she waited. And when they came out, she was there. So that's one thing. And then the other question I had was regarding the GT kids that are being picked up. Was there some agreement or something that says that the GT kids that are being picked up are supposed to be picked up in front of their house? Because my understanding is that each of those kids is being picked up pretty much right at their house, at least on our route. And, even when there are 2 kids that are a couple hundred yards apart, I mean, that's just, talk about inequality, and what kind of message does that send to the other kids who are waiting 13 kids at a stop and sitting on the bus for an hour? And these other kids are getting door-to-door service. So is there some reason why that's happening, or it was just the way the stops worked out? Because I think that that's
Right, the rules.
unacceptable as well.
The rules should be the same for all the students. There can be particular reasons why a particular child might have to be picked up because of where the house is or something, but it shouldn't be because there shouldn't be different rules for different children in different programs, certainly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was not, when the routes are redone, that that's not going to be a factor, and that it'll be addressed along with the other issues.
I think it should be looked at to make sure that's not the case. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Debbie Hayden, 53 Michael. I just want to make a note. I have a 9th grader who gets the bus exactly the same place as my 6th grader. She gets on the bus at 6:57, gets to the high school about 7:16. So that is an acceptable commute, and there's no problem. I mean, maybe it's 5 minutes longer than if I drove her, but it's twice as long for my 6th grader on the E7. That's it.
Diana Dobashevitz again. Let me just add that on the other side, where the kids are getting, the E7 bus is getting to Edison School late, the E14 bus is getting there 20 minutes, 25 minutes early. And what happens there is the kids are told to get off the bus, and now they're standing in front of the school because the school doesn't let them in until 8:07, the first bell. So now those children are standing at the school for 20, 25 minutes. First week of school, it rained almost every morning, as we all know. This week it's been nice, but soon it'll get cold, and that can't keep happening. So just, I wanted to point that out, that kids can't get to the school at 7:45 either, and then dropped off, and there goes the bus, and, you know, nobody's out there with them. And if that's going to happen, I think there should be a policy where, being those children on the bus don't have control as to what time the bus gets there, they should be allowed in the school. As a parent, if I'm dropping my kid off at 7:45 because I have to get to work, that's obviously not the district's problem that I'm dropping my kid. That's my responsibility. But it's not my responsibility to drive the bus, and it's not my control what time the bus gets there. So those bus kids should be allowed to go into the building if the bus does get there early, and maybe put into the auditorium or just let into the gym. I think there's free gym time or something. You know, that's an option if that's going to happen. And maybe that won't happen every day, but certainly something to consider. When the bus does get there early, those kids shouldn't be punished for that and standing outside in the cold winter mornings. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If I could make a comment, we are monitoring the time the buses get to Edison and the time that they leave Edison in the afternoon. If a bus is consistently getting there 15, 20 minutes early, then what we'll do is we'll make the route later. There's no reason a bus should be getting in 20 minutes before the start of school. And just to go back over those first couple days, I mean, they were totally inexcusable, and a lot of that was created because the drivers, all of them, did not do the normal practice runs. I mean, there's nothing we can do going back to correcting that, in changing that. However, as far as I can see, the E14 run seems to be running pretty efficiently. I did ride the bus home a couple days ago, and it took exactly 23 minutes from Edison to the last stop. Now, we are going to still make some changes on that route to make it a little more efficient. I agree, the E7 is a problem. It's too long, too many kids, and that's something we're going to be focusing on. But we'll be looking at everything.
Big meeting tomorrow at 4. I'm sure we'll hear from someone in the administration about the next steps. So thank you for that, and thank you all for coming and letting us know what's going on. Appreciate your time. Anyone else? Board. All right, I don't believe we have a private session this evening, so we're adjourned. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Those against? Thank you.